Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a good start of the week so far. We're going to do a Rashi together from Parshas Vaera. I'm going to cheat a little bit today, just on the cusp between the first Aliyah and second Aliyah, although it is Monday. But I want to share a few interesting psukim and a few interesting Rashis with you, although they're technically in yesterday's Aliyah. But of course, in the beginning of the parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu receives and is asked to reveal the Arba Lashonas Geula, V'otzesi, V'hitzalti, V'ga'alti, V'lakachti, V'hevesi, the fifth Lashon of Geula, the four languages of redemption, the ideas of the various stages of what Hashem would do to redeem them from Egypt. However, the punchline, the sad punchline, which we already mentioned last week, in another Rashi we did, is V'lo shamu Moshe mikotze ruach o me'avodah kasha. They couldn't listen to him. They couldn't hear him. They couldn't absorb that which he was saying because of the depth of their work. Very interesting Rashi on that as well, which we covered, I think, on Sunday morning in Shul, but which you can look at on your own. Why couldn't they hear him? Why couldn't they listen to him? Why couldn't they hear the words of redemption, even though they were mired in the sufferings of slavery? But then the psukim go on. So Hashem responds to that and says to Moshe, Bo daber el paro melech Mitzrayim v'shalachas b'nei Yisrael mi'artzo. Next stage has to go into effect. Even though Bnei Israel didn't listen to you, you still have to do stage 2, which is to go to Paro and tell him he has to send the Jewish people away. Those were the 2 mandates that Moshe Rabbeinu had received. And Moshe responds and says, Hein Bnei Israel lo shamu elai, ve'ich yishmaini Paro v'ani aras v'sayim. It's a twofold argument over here. Firstly, it's a kal v'chomer, as Rashi points out. Zeh achad me'asara kal v'chomer shebat Torah. There are 10 instances of the Torah's text itself citing a kal v'chomer. Kal v'chomer is a certain kind of halachic argument, whereas if the easier case is true, then certainly the more difficult case will be true as well. If this is true, then all the more so that will be true, even though it's not stated over here. So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, Bnei Yisrael were the easy case. They're the slaves. I'm telling them they're going to be free, and they're not willing to listen to me. So kal v'chomer, all the more so, Paro's not going to listen to me. And on top of that kal v'chomer, that logical argument, I have another argument, which is that I have a speech impediment. Ani aras v'sayim. I don't speak well. I don't present well. And so why would Paro listen to me? 2 different arguments Moshe Rabbeinu is leveling over here. So what does Hashem say back? V'aydaber Hashem Moshe ve'el Aharon, as I mentioned in the Rashi this morning. This is the first instance where Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron as a pair to try to get them to act on behalf of Bnei Israel. And the reason for that is Lefisha Amar Moshe, as Rashi says here, Ani aras v'sayim. Sirei Hakadosh Baruch Hu is Aaron imo lios lo lemelitz. He joined Aaron to Moshe because Moshe's argument in the previous pasuk was Ani aras v'sayim. I can't talk. And even in last week's parsha, we had the idea that Aaron would be Moshe Rabbeinu's mouthpiece, he would be his helper. And so right after that argument of Moshe comes the pasuk, which is Hashem speaking to Moshe and Aaron as a pair who are going to address these issues with Paro. And later in the parsha, we're going to see them addressing Bnei Israel, and they're always mentioned in tandem, which is also, as Rashi points out, why the Torah now deviates for a long section about the lineage of Bnei Israel. Why is it talking about the lineage of Bnei Israel smack in the middle of this story of redemption? It actually fits earlier in the parsha when we talked about who were those who descended in last week's parsha. Who were those who descended to Egypt? Already told to us in Vayigash, it's repeated in the beginning of Shemos. So that was the opportune time, not only to tell us who came down to Egypt, but to tell us all their lineage and who came after them, et cetera, in all the years of slavery. But it deviates over here in the middle of this story to talk about lineage and family trees. Why? Rashi says, sorry, I thought it was in this Rashi. Because it already mentioned Moshe and Aaron, it stopped to talk about the lineage of all these tribes. To tell us the lineage ultimately of Moshe and Aaron as well. And there's various reasons for that, which we could get to when we get to those psukim, but the Torah makes a deviation talking about lineage because it had mentioned Moshe and Aaron. So the mention of Moshe and Aaron here is significant. It's the first one. It comes on the foothills of Ani aras v'sayim, and it leads to this major detour about lineage, which is really to tell us their ancestry. Okay, but that's not even what I wanted to study with you today. What I want to study with you today is the rest of this pasuk. Hashem speaks to Moshe and Aaron and says, Vayitzavem el bnei Israel, Ve'el Paro melech Mitzrayim lotzias b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. He commands them el b'nei Yisrael and el Paro. What is el? And what is he commanding them? He's commanding them el. Is he commanding them to go to Bnei Yisrael and to Paro? Is he commanding them regarding Bnei Yisrael and Paro? Is he commanding them upon Bnei Yisrael and Paro? What exactly is the command over here? Is it related to the rest of the pasuk? Le'otzias Bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. That seems to be the pshat. But let's see what Rashi has to say over here. Two really interesting comments. Vayitzavem el Bnei Yisrael. That's the first piece. Vayitzavem el Bnei Yisrael. He commands them upon or regarding Bnei Yisrael. Siva lehem lahanhigam benachat velisbol otam. So Rashi reads the el not as upon, but regarding. This was not a command for them to do something or say something to Bnei Israel and to Paro. This is a command for them to behave a certain way. Hashem commands Moshe and Aaron in their own behavior regarding Paro and regarding Bnei Israel. So what is he commanding them in terms of their behavior with each of those parties? With Bnei Israel, he commands Moshe and Aaron to lead them with nachat, calmness, pleasantness, velisbolotam, and to suffer them. Now, it's an amazing statement. Hashem, of course, in his infinite wisdom, understood that Moshe and Aaron are beginning their journey of leadership over here, and it's not going to be an easy one. Even though they're coming to save Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael should be completely appreciative of them and completely kind to them and unquestioning of them, but that's not going to be the case. Like with any people, especially with Jewish people, they're going to give them a hard time. They're going to be difficult to them. And Hashem is giving Moshe and Aaron the command and perhaps the courage to plow forward and to have resolve and to not react in an angry manner, but to lead them with calmness and to suffer all of what they throw at them as the leaders. And we know sometimes that backfires for Moshe Rabbeinu later, something that's difficult, something that every leader struggles with, but certainly Moshe and Aaron would have struggled with in this moment. Hashem, even before they start, he's commanding them to be this way because he knows it's not going to be easy. Okay, that's El Bnei Yisrael. But El Paro Melech Mitzrayim, what is that about? He's commanding them regarding Paro. Rashi says, El Paro Melech Mitzrayim, Sivam alav lachalok lo kavod l'divreihem. Zeh midrasho. He commands Moshe and Aaron to give kavod to Paro through their words, meaning to treat him based on his royal standing. It would be very easy for Moshe and Aaron to come in and see Paro as the murderer of Jews, as terrible, terrible king who's subjecting our people to torture and harm. And yet, Hashem commands them to deal with him in terms of his position, not in terms of his personality, to deal with him as they would any monarch. La chalok lo kavod. Not sure what we can learn from there, what we can see from there. Maybe it's a tactic, maybe it's a halacha, I don't know. But either way, Hashem is commanding them to behave a certain way towards Bnei Israel and a certain way to Paro. Now, that's midrasho. Upshuto tzivam al davar Yisrael v'ashlichuso al Paro. The pshat of the pasuk is he commands them regarding Bnei Israel and Paro about lehotzias Bnei Israel me'eretz Mitzrayim, the end of the pasuk. The pshat is that he's commanding them to go to these various parties in order to effectuate the process of taking them out of Egypt. That's the pshat. But the medrash here is he's commanding them about their own behavior in a certain way regarding those two parties. I think an interesting way of parsing out the pasuk and seeing two different levels of meaning, but also some very interesting lessons about leadership and challenges of leadership that Hashem is being very realistic about with Moshe and Aaron. Thanks so much, everybody. Hope you have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye.
Enjoy the beautiful weather.
Yes, I will.
have a
You
night.
too. Thanks.